Hello, hello, good morning. It's Monica from Life is Art, and this is the Thursday, now 10:30 a.m. live at the Bright Ideas Online Crop, and I'm so glad you're joining me this morning. We had a little bumpy start to our day, and that included a power outage at my house. There were over 9,000 people and businesses without power in my little neck of Brampton, and I think they had a equipment failure is what they said. Obviously, something wasn't working, and so their last check just a minute ago, there's still about 150 people out of those 9,600 and something. And so hopefully they get their power back on soon. This is not the kind of weather that you want to be without power if you rely on your furnace and such to keep you warm. If you got wood, not so bad, but yeah. Anyway, so we only had an outage for about 20-ish minutes, and that's not terrible. All right, I hope you guys are having a great day and doing a little better than that. If you're joining me live, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. If you're watching later on replay, then drop a comment so I know you stopped by. And this morning, we are going to be working on something it's kind of exciting, and it was an idea that Marilyn sent me. So if you ever have an idea and you're like, I wonder how to make that, just send me the idea, whether it's a picture or a video or whatever, and I will see what I can do. So Marilyn sent me this idea. It involves a little bit of movement on a card, and so I decided to give it a go, and we're going to be using the dies from the Gears and Textures, and we're also going to be using our Spotlight on Nature dies, and I'm going to be using a stylish shape die. Now I also have the stamp set that goes with this Gears and Textures coming, and it's supposed to arrive today. I probably should have gone and checked, but it said after 11 in the morning, so it's probably not here yet, but it is out for delivery, so yay, we're going to be able to play with that over the weekend. We're also going to be using last month's product of the month from Stampin' Up, which is the Fabulous Sayings stamp set, and I am loving this one for sure. If you haven't yet seen the February product of the month, you're going to want to check that out because it's a really gorgeous paper pack. And I think that this one is still available, so if your order qualifies for the product of the month, you get to choose. So that's exciting. Okay. We're also going to be using the Nature Walk 12 by 12 Designer Series paper. Now, this is going to involve a little bit of finagling, and I saw a little video that Marilyn sent me, and then I kind of designed my own thing, and I did it over a week ago. So now the trick is for me to remember how I did it. Ooh, it'll be like magic. Did she or did she not remember how it worked? I see that my mom is here. Good morning, and Allison as well, and Deborah. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Okay, so the Nature Walk Designer Series paper has got some gorgeous, deep, saturated colors. There's lots of Secret Sea and Mossy Meadow and Old Olive and Crumb Cake. And what else is in there? There's a whole list of different colors and textures. And I chose this one for today. And it's a really sort of dark, and then it ombres down to a lighter color at the bottom. So I've kind of cut the piece that I want out of the Designer Series paper, and I have cut it to 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I have also cut a piece of black. And this is the 8.5 by 11 black cardstock, so it's same color both sides, basic black, and it's the same size. The first thing we need to do with these two is we're going to cut a little bit of a notch out of the side, a little bit of a curve. And to do that, we're going to use our Stylish Shapes dies, and not the biggest one. Let me just remind myself which one I used. Nope, it's the third largest. And there we go. That's the one I want right there. And what we're going to do is we are going to cut a little notch out of the right-hand side of these two papers. So we may as well cut them at the same time, getting a piece of washi tape going there. Does anybody ever have that with a roll of tape where you try to take some tape off and you just get like a skinny little strip? That's so annoying, isn't it? All right, so just along the side here, we're going to sort of in the middle, just take a little arched notch out. It doesn't have to be a lot, just a little. And I'm actually going to put my tape on the inside of the circle in case my washi tape decides to hold stronger than I think it will. I don't want it to mess with my paper. And I'm going to do them both at the same time. I've got my die cut machine here. This is the old Stampin' Up! Big Shot. And we're just going to make sure those two layers are lined up. Run it through. Just like that. We're just taking the notch off. We don't even have to go all the way through. There we go. We can get rid of this. Now there is more die cutting involved, but I have done a lot of it ahead of time, but I will keep my machine handy in case we need it again, because we will use it again, just for fun. Okay, so we've got that notch taken off, and you can see we now have a nice little curve that matches on both of our pieces. Okay, our next step is to use our Spotlight on Nature die. And the only reason I use the Spotlight on Nature die is because it's the biggest circle that I can get out of any of my dies. So I just used this big one. And it's got that sort of ridged edge all the way around. I cut it out of the basic black again. So it's got that nice little textured ridge, which I was hoping, because this is going to become a spinner, you know, where you spin the side. And it's probably got enough grip on the edge of it to not have to make any notches, but I created some notches in mine just in case. And all I did was I have this punch that my mom gifted me a while ago. It's a hole punch that just makes a circle, but it's a little bit smaller, probably 2/3 the size of a regular hole punch. So all I did was I used the edge of my punch as my spacer, and I only trimmed off about half of the circle. You see that? How I just made a little doop right on the edge. And then I'm going to use the my thing here to space me out around the edge. And I'm just going to punch my way around here. If you had a crocodile or any of those things, it would work. You could even just use your scissors, make little V-ticks, anything. And what this is going to do is it's just going to give us a little something to kind of catch your fingernail or your finger to make your spinner spin better. Okay? So it's not for aesthetics or anything really. It's just to help our function. And we're just going to work our way around, punching those out. You're going to have to listen to the click, click, click as I work my way around here. I suppose I could have had some of them punched out ahead of time, but I did not. Could have used that extra time I had while our power was out. And I had thought about going live anyway, except for my room is pretty dark. And even I tried opening my curtain and my blinds, and it wasn't going to give us enough light. Because also our internet goes out after a while. But on my cell phone, of course, I have data. So I could have But I thought, you know what, we'll just wait and see. Hopefully it won't last forever. And yay, it didn't. 20 minutes. Totally livable. I know there's been some people down in the States this past week. They've had no power for like 10, 11 days. So 20 minutes is nothing. So there we go. We've got our nice little notches all the way around. And what we're going to do now is kind of decide where this is going to sit on our card. We want it to come out towards that notch, and it's actually going to be behind the card, but right now I'm going to hold it on the front, and I'm going to bump it a little bit over because we do have a little bit extra room for it, because this is smaller than a standard card size. And what I want to do is I want to grab this, and this has been cut using our Stylish Shapes dies, and it's a piece of Darling Duckling, and I used the largest circle and then cut it in half. So it is about a 3-inch circle cut in half, so it's 1.5 inches wide. And we've just got that in it, but it's the light side of the Darling Duckling. And I want to line this up so that I can trace it on my piece of paper. I know it's kind of like convoluted here, but you know, stick with me. So we're going to put it on our circle right like this so that it's in the center. You know, like the center is centered. And then I'm going to use a sticky note right like this to kind of stick it there and stick it there. And then we're going to take away, hopefully without moving it, we're going to take away the circle underneath. And that sticky note has hopefully held it in place. And then all I want to do is just lightly draw with my pencil around this, because it's going to give us an indication of where we can do a little bit of die cutting. So like I said, we're going to do a little bit more die cutting here. So we've got our little half circle. And now from our Gears and Textures dies, we have a couple of dies that cut out a light bulb. So there's kind of the light bulb with the socket on top, and then just where the glass would be. So we're going to just use the part where the glass would be. I'm going to pull that out. Love the new packaging that we have. And we're going to take just the glass. Look at all those fun dies. Aren't those cool? We're going to use another one in a minute. So just setting that aside. And we're going to make use of our washi tape. We're only going to die cut on the top layer, just our designer series paper, not the cardstock. And we're going to die cut some of these little light bulbs. So let's stick that on there. Again, we're just trying to get the washi tape on the inside of the die, because that's the piece that's leaving us. Bring back in our machine. Run it through. Okay, so there, we've got one little piece cut out now. We're going to pop that out. Then we're going to line this up again, staying inside our little half circle. Stick that on, trying to make sure I have it vertical. Run that through. We're going to do 3 little light bulbs. Hey, Joanne, good morning. Now, the original idea that Marilyn sent me was, and some of you may have seen it, it's a little penguin who's got an arm kind of in front of him, and when you spin, the arm moves, like, so it's pointing up, and above the little penguin, there's a series of hearts. And as the, I'm trying to see my pencil lines, as the arm moves, the hearts fill up with red. And so the little hearts, it's like, how much do you love me? And all the hearts start lighting up, which I think is super cute. Despite the fact that penguins don't really have arms, they have flippers. So that seemed a little odd, but it was such a cute idea. So I'm not going to have anything like an arm that points at anything, but we're going to have some action happening anyway. Okay, we've got that done. And now we need to bring in our eraser because we want to remove those pencil lines. They were just there so that we knew where to put those little die cuts. Alrighty. So we're going to see there. Now you can see where I've die cut those. And then now we need to make these look a little bit shiny. So they look like light bulbs. So on the back side here, I'm going to add a piece of window sheet. So I have cut myself a little 3 1/4 by 2 inch piece of window sheet, and it always comes with this little film on it to keep it from getting scratched and all that kind of stuff. Supposedly to keep it clean, but you know, there's fuzz on there. Of course there is. I'm going to use a little bit of really super sticky tape to hold this down. So whatever kind of adhesive you have that's good for sticking down window sheet or acetate, that's what you want here. And this stuff doesn't tear. It's not like that tearing tape. So you gotta trim it. So I'm just gonna put a little strip on either end because we don't want to have adhesive where we've got our little light bulbs. You want to make sure you stick that down good. And then, of course, we'll take the backing off. It's called red tape, but once you take the backing off, it's no longer red. Let's use our take your pick tool. It's much more efficient. There we go. Now it's just clear adhesive. And on the back side here, we're going to line this up. Make sure it covers all of those. And that it's not poking out our little notch here. So there's our window sheet attached. And that helps make our little light bulbs look kind of shiny. Alrighty. Now what we need to do is we need to adhere our little half circle onto our big circle. And since it's a fun shape, we're going to use our liquid glue for this. We don't want to put too much liquid glue because we don't want to make a mess, but just enough to keep it down. I'm even going to use my tweezers to help me line this up. Line it up in the center-ish. Make sure it sticks. There we go. Now, we want to do some layering here. I need to put the lid on my glue because I will forget and then it'll dry out. So we need to do some layering, and we also need to punch a hole because we need to have this attached to our back panel, but we need it to spin. So we need to have something to hold it where it needs to be. So we're going to line everything up, get our circle in here, like so. Get our circle in, make sure it sticks out the hole there, and that all of our little light bulbs are in there. Let's do it like that so that it's level. We'll start out level. Make sure everything works. And it looks good to me. All our little light bulbs are lit up. That's sticking out. And then what I want to do is I'm going to take my take your pick tool, and I'm going to hopefully aim for the center. I could measure that, you know, I totally could. Let me grab a ruler. Then it won't wobble while we turn it. So, I got stuff on my desk, so I got to get my ruler in here somehow. Which direction? There we go. That's the right measurement. Okay, so our we're at 3 7/8, and so 3 is 1.5, and 7/8, 1, 2, 3.5/8. So right there should be our center. So we're going to use the Take Your Pick tool, the little pointy part of the pick, and we're actually going to poke a hole like that through, so we can see on the back where the center is, and we can see here where our center should be. And this is where we need to bring in our dies. And conveniently, they have this nice little die right here that makes a nice little hole. And it's conveniently sized so that the mini dimensionals can fit in that size of a hole. It's almost like they planned it this way. So we're going to, because it's hollow in the middle, we can line that up so that it's right smack dab on top of that dot we just made, and then of course move it so that it moves. Line it up with our little poked hole, stick it down, bring back our die cut machine, and we're going to pop a hole through this. Now this project is going to take a little longer than most of my videos, so which is why 10 o'clock would have been nice, because at 11:30 we have chat and craft. So if we run a little late, hopefully we won't. We'll speed along here. Hopefully we won't run right into chat and craft, but I'm sure those who attend chat and craft will understand. Okay, so we've got our little hole there. Now we're going to take our circle with our darling duckling, we're going to flip it over, and on top of where that little hole is, we're going to take one of our mini dimensionals and we're going to line it right up with that little pokey hole, and then we can put it through from front to back. See how it comes right through that little hole we created? We're going to take off the backing, and then from here we also have this die right here, this middle one, and it creates a gear, but it also creates a decently sized little circle in the center that cuts out separately. And so I've gone ahead and cut that out of the basic black, and that's going to get stuck right on there as kind of like a washer. So that's going to keep our little gear that we created from falling off our card. Just that little dimensional, that mini dimensional right there. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to add some dimensionals around the outside. So I have one of the dimensional sheets, and I have gone ahead and cut little slices. So I'm going to add those on top here to create a buffer. We need to have room for that wheel to spin. If we stuck our two pieces right tight together, there's not enough room for anything to spin. And so let's go ahead and stick. It's kind of like making a shaker card, right? You got to leave space for things to move in a shaker. Same with our little spinner here. There we go. And I'm gonna add a couple little bit there. I'm not going to go all the way up the side because the gear comes pretty close to the edge there. Like that. And then here, we'll just grab some of this. Got the edge pieces. Oops. We'll add one there and one there. Okay, now we can peel off all of our backings. Ta-da! Did I get them all? Okay, now I want to layer this on top of this. And so we just want to make sure that we line everything up as well as we can and stick it on down. And now you can see that our little mechanism turns and our little light bulbs are going to light up and go out. Okay, so once we have done that, now it's a matter of adding it to our card base. So I have my Crumb Cake cardstock. I've cut it to 8.5 by 5.5, scored it in the center at 4 1/4. We're going to fold along that score line and use our bone folder to crease that down well. Before we add anything to it though, we're going to add our sentiment on the inside, and from our product of the month, Fabulous Sayings, we're going to use the You Can Do Anything on the inside of our card. We're going to stamp it using some Memento Tuxedo black ink. Just ink that up, stamp it on down. You can do anything. And then we can adhere this to the front of our card. But before we do, you know what? We're going to add a little bit of inking around the edges. Just with our sponge dauber. Just a quick strip. Because that's going to look nice with that fun designer series paper we have. That's all kind of grungy and industrial looking. And then we can go ahead and we can adhere this to the front. But again, we have this little stopper here in the back, and it needs room to move too. So we're going to use some more dimensionals, same as we did on the in-between layer. And Stampin' Up! Has strips, like pre-cut strips of this stuff, dimensionals. But there's also the one that I'm using right now where it's a sheet and you can cut it to any size and shape you want. So that's what I have that I'm using right now. And then I've got little leftover bits on here. So we're going to add a few more, just because we want to make sure everything moves nicely. We'll just add some there, closer to the center, and that's good. It doesn't have to look pretty because we're never going to see it, right? We'll just take all that off. There we go. Sometimes these kinds of fun cards do take a few extra dimensionals. All right, now we're going to center this on our card. Right about there. And even though our little wheel stuck out a little bit beyond the edge of our top layer, it's okay because we have that card base that kind of protects it from getting knocked around, and it'll still fit in our envelope, right? Okay, now we want to decorate this, and we have those fabulous dies in our gear and texture dies set, and I wanted to make use of those, but I wanted to do something a little bit fun, and this takes a minute, so we're not going to do a lot of it. I've got a piece of basic white cardstock, a little bit of scrap paper, and we're going to bring in some inks and some blending brushes. We're going to start with some Crumb Cake, and we're just going to put some color onto our cardstock. And my desk is going to move like crazy. I'm going to try and hold it so it doesn't move too much. But you just want to get some color on there. Could I cut the dies out on cardstock that's already colored? I sure could. In fact, I have. I got baggies of dies going on right now. But I thought it would also be fun to get a little bit of inky goodness going on. And if you're not confident in your ability to do ink blending, this is a good one to do because it doesn't have to look pretty, okay? Because we're going to die cut, so your die cuts are going to come from all over this piece of paper. And so you just want to get some color on there. All right, and it's going to look kind of industrial, so industrial stuff gets dirty. So we're just gonna get inky, inky, inky. So this is some pretty Peacock going down. We can kind of blend them together. Then let's grab some Mossy Meadow. Let's pop some of that on here. Nice dark green. These are all coordinating colors with this collection. Here we go. Add some of that. Kind of blend it in. And then we can also add some Secret C. Now, when I was doing this before, I did like a whole sheet of paper. I made a fun inky mess. And so let's bring in some Secret C. It's interesting that Secret C is such a dark color, but when you blend it like this, you can get some really light values as well. More transparent, more opaque, whatever you want. Mix it all in, blend it all around. Okay, that's the idea. You can do whatever you want with this. You could even come in with some stamping, add some designs and some textures and different things, and there's a stamp set that coordinates, hopefully arriving today. But one thing that I want to show you is an interesting technique for heat embossing. And I'm not going to use Versamark ink, and these are not the kinds of inks that you would normally heat emboss with. However, my paper is a little bit sticky right now because I've just put ink all over it, okay? And I have here some of the metallic copper embossing powder, and what I'm going to do is I've made myself a little scoop. This is handy to have. It's a little piece of cardstock, and I've kind of bent the end. That's it. It's just a piece of cardstock. It sits beside my embossing powders. But what I can do with this is I can pick up a little bit, and I can just sprinkle it. Okay? I'm not hitting everywhere. Some places are getting more, some places are getting less, and I'm just sprinkling. Okay? I don't want it to look like an even coating. I'm just trying to get some of that lovely copper going on my paper. Okay? So you make yourself a little hot mess with some sprinkled copper embossing powder. And it's just sitting there. So I'm going to bring in my heat tool. And my heat tool is having a little bit of an issue. I think it fell on the floor at one point. So it's making a weird noise. The trick with this is I can't blow from the top. Because if I blew from the top, what would happen to all that embossing powder? Because it's not held down with Versamark. It would just blow right off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on my heat tool. And I'm going to hold it facing up. And I'm going to try and not point it at my phone. But I'm going to hold it facing up. And I'm going to put my paper on top. And what that is going to do is it's going to heat the embossing powder from behind. This also works with things like vellum, when you want to not be holding it in one spot for too long. And you will start seeing, hopefully, that embossing powder will start to do its thing and change to shiny and coppery. Ooh. Yeah, my heat tool, I think I need to get a new one. I think that falling on the floor didn't do it any good. Because my fan was just blowing harder and now it's blowing less. But we are slowly having the transition. Now once that embossing powder starts to change, it's kind of stuck to the paper. Okay? And I'm not touching the paper. I've got distance. I'm also not blowing it at my hand. But once it starts to change and it's a little bit activated, you can switch and emboss from the top because it's not going to blow away now. It's kind of melded to the paper at this point. And then we can just make sure everything else gets embossed that maybe doesn't look shiny yet. And after you've done that, if you decide you want more embossing powder on there, you just go ahead and sprinkle some more on there, right? But look at that. We've got some fun sort of all over the place, messy embossing. We didn't even make a mess because none of it hit my table. We're going to close this up because that will make a mess if we knock it over. But then we can take this paper and we can die cut our lovely dies from it. So we can take this die and this die and this die and this die. And this die can even go inside that die. You can cut two at once. We can take this guy. We can even bring in, where's the little circle? There's our little circle that we cut out before. Oh, it popped out. We can put that in the center to give this one a little center. And then we can run it through. Now, I've kind of spread these out. And to be fair, if this was me doing this, I'd be doing like, you know, maximizing the space, right? Because that's how we do it. We want to get as many as we can out of our piece, right? So let's put our top on. Because the more we can cut, the more goodness we can have, right? Now, my video has stopped for me. I hope it's still going for you. If it's still working, can you just give me a nod in the comments to say, yep, everything's okay? Okay, and let's take these guys out. All right. So, I'll just quickly show you this because I prepared some ahead of time. But I wanted you to see what these fun little guys look like. Let's pop all the edges out and then peel it off. So now you can see we've got fun inky goodness. You can do it after you die cut them, but it's so much easier to do a whole sheet and get all the different colors going. And, oh, everybody's saying it's all okay. Yep, yeah, see my video. As soon as it started, it stopped. Gotta love it. But then you can also make it even a little bit more grungy. You can come in with your black ink, and this is what I did with mine. And you can ink your edges. Now, these have lots of little ins and outs, but if you take and just, I use my finger and kind of wrap it around like that, then you can kind of get into those little nooks and crannies like that, right? Add some inky goodness all the way around. Just takes a second or 20. So you get some nice ink all the way around there. You can even use it like a dauber and add a little bit of extra like that. So you know you're making like greasy gears ready to go. And yeah, so lots of fun things that you can do with those gears. I've done some ahead of time. I used all the same inks, the same embossing powder. I inked the edges. And so now we're ready to decorate. And I'm going to save these for later. Scooch those out of the way. So let's bring this in. The other thing that I have done is I have die cut a couple of these chains and 3 of these light bulbs with the top on them in the coppered textured metallics. We have a pack of textured metallics that has copper and gold and sort of a bluish one. So I've done those in the copper so that it matches my copper heat embossing. And we could have also done some sprinkle heat embossing on this, but I decided not to. So let's go ahead and do our light bulbs first. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to cut the tops off of these, because if we stuck this whole thing down, we'd never see our cute little windows. So we're just going to leave a little bit of the top so that it looks like the part that holds the light bulb. And trim these off just horizontally, about the same size for all of them, so they look matchy-matchy. And then we can glue those down, and when we're doing little delicate things, we can do our little glue trick with our tweezers. That trick comes in handy for all sorts of crafting. Oh, now I'm not going to be able to pick them up. When they're die cut, they have that little edge that turns down, makes them hard to pick up. So we're just going to ink that up, and we're going to stick those on. And remember, it's going to cover up a little tiny bit of the window. So overlap it a little bit. And that's going to make it look like really cute little light bulbs. Like so. Tap it in the glue. Get some glue. Stick it on. And then we can add a little chain. Let's put a little strip of glue on our hand. We're going to get some glue on a little bit of the chain. And let's see if we can get this vertical. And just butt that up to our light. Take our scissors. Trim it off. We could have done that before I stuck it to the card, but it'll still work. We got that nice gap from all the dimensionals. And then let's pick it up again. And that actually trimmed off right out of link, so that works out well. Let's glue that, the next few up. Stick those on like that. Trim it from behind. And it looks like we've got some lights hanging down from the ceiling. And this one, because that one got cut weird, we're going to spin it around and glue from the other end so that we got a solid link at the bottom. There we go. How cool is that? I love the little bit of shine that's giving. Okay, look at that. I think that last one, yeah, that's okay. That's close enough. Okay, and then we have all sorts of fun little gears that I made up ahead of time. Same process we did before. I did a little bit of the Memento inking around the edge. And, you know, to maximize space, we even have little half-size gears. And I also cut out some of these. These are like the little fasteners to go in the center of the gears. So let's go ahead and start decorating the front of our card to make this look all mechanical and lovely. We'll start with our big one. And this one I'm just going to put glue right on it. Like so. Now I'm going to glue mine flat because I don't want to mess around with the dimensionals, because that takes a hot minute or 20. But you could totally pop some of these up and make them look like they're all interconnected that way and have a lot of fun with these. So we're going to put a little extra in the center. We can even grab one of these little fasteners, put that in the center. So we're building up our gears. We're giving them the gears. That was a saying that my grandpa used to say. He's giving them the gears. Let's grab another one of these little guys. The little fasteners. So you can layer these up however you like. And let's see, let's grab this guy. Get some glue around the edge. Like that. Let's see if I can tuck it. I don't think I glued down all these. So I can do a little lifty lift. Tuck it under there like that. Like so. And we're going to need a little bit more glue. More glue! So you can just have fun with these. Play with them. Create some fun little things. Do they all have to look grungy and rustic? Absolutely not. You can do any kind of design you want on here. These could be pastel colors. Right? But I just thought with this nature walk that these sort of grungy colors looked pretty cool. My video's still not working. I have no idea if anybody's commenting. Alright. And then let's add this little guy in here. Get some glue on him. I'm going to stick him on down there like that. Let's put a center on there too. Like so. We're going to need more glue. More glue, more glue. Because we're going to add more. This little guy, let's overlap him. Oh, there's my alarm on my phone because we're getting close to chat and craft time. Let's have this guy overlapping. Almost done. We just got to add our sentiment on here in a second because we want a sentiment on the front of our card too, don't we? All right, this one is gonna kind of go off the edge, and we can trim him. Does he need a center? He does need a little center. Let's pop a center on there. And then we can even use these little guys. These little half-size ones. We'll just put them on the edge. Just like that. This little guy. Super cute. All right. We can trim. Always want to trim from the back so you can see where you're trimming so that you're not trimming the front part. There we go. I'll add another little guy there in a second. But we need to make our sentiment for the front. Just going to grab a piece of scrap paper for this, and we're going to add a little bit of ink to it. I'm just going to use whatever ink is on my blending brushes right now. We'll add a little bit of that, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, just to get some color on it. And then we're going to go ahead and stamp the word hooray from our fabulous saying stamp set. Ink that up. Hooray! And I'm even going to be one of those people who's just going to go ahead and trim it with their scissors. Like so. We got our little dauber here. We can do a little ink around the edge. And we can even do a little bit of this. Get a little dab, dab, dab. We got to grunge it up a little. And then add that onto our card. Let's use some tape. Actually, you know what? Let's use some dimensional. We'll make it pop up a little bit. Why not? A little bit of dimensional. Stick that on. Hooray! And a little bit of bling. Can't go wrong with that. So we have our Moody Palette Glossy dots that coordinate with this collection really well. And I'm going to use these Secret Sea ones down here and just pop a little trio on. Let's put one there, a bigger one down there, and then, oops, oh, it's on my finger. Good. There we go. Just to kind of highlight that sentiment. A little trio, and now the reveal. Hooray! The lights are going on. We've had a brilliant idea. We spun it around. Hooray! And then on the inside, you can do anything. I think that is a super fun card. Thank you, Marilyn, for the idea of creating a spinner, a little bit of action on the front of our card, and something fun, because especially for guys, they like to play with things. So a card where they can kind of fiddle with it, super fun. And you can do anything. I hope you guys enjoyed seeing that come together. I know it was a little longer than usual, and we started a lot later than usual. Thank you for your patience with the power outage, and we will be on at 11:30 for Chat and Craft. We'll see you then. Toodaloo!